Cormac McCarthy's 1985 novel, Blood Meridian or The Evening Redness in the West, has garnered newfound praise in the wake of the short-form content craze. Set in the 1800s, the story centers around the Kid and his escapades alongside the murderous Glanton Gang, a group of genocidal scalp hunters who massacre indigenous peoples across the frontier. The Kid is both a witness and participant in the ceaseless violence that occurs at the hands of those around him. McCarthy's prose here carries a penchant for extreme violence and bleakness, solidifying its role as an anti-Western work of literature. This image of Judge Holden, the primary antagonist of the book, continues to make rounds on the internet alongside Am from Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and The Coup from All Tomorrows, a billion-year chronicle of the myriad species and mixed fortunes of man, as the most evil characters created in the history of written fiction. Blood Meridian's resurgence allowed for the internet's incessant need to categorize those who engage with art to strike once again. Metastasizing from the cinematic concepts of Literally Me and Film Bro, the idea of Lit Bro is now solidified as a canonical concept in the digital literary discourse. This idea stemmed from the supposed typical enjoyer of books like Blood Meridian and David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest, attracting those who desire being seen in the act of reading rather than enjoying the process of reading itself. The notion of someone actually performatively engaging with a contender for the great American novel and a 1,000-plus page postmodern work for arbitrary points seems rather unlikely in reality, but it is nonetheless important to acknowledge how digital ecosystems encourage those who may have not been interested in these books to now read them. In a world where those are hyper-cognizant of how the internet impacts one's art, it is paramount to challenge expected norms while fostering a love for what we interact with, and any form of meaningful engagement is synonymous with care. Due to the medium-specific nature of McCarthyan prose and the extensive role that violence plays in the narrative, fans have long debated whether or not Blood Meridian should ever be adapted into a film. Many have tried to kickstart projects of their own over the years, with notable Hollywood names like Tommy Lee Jones, Ridley Scott, and James Franco each increasingly growing closer to achieving this. Franco's initial test reel is available to watch on the internet and should be enshrined as a textbook example of how not to adapt the source material. Director John Hillcoat received McCarthy's blessing before the author's passing in 2023 to work to bring Blood Meridian to the screen after his success with The Road. Regarding its progress, no other major developments have occurred in the recent past. Much discourse is attributed to the visual speculation of the American frontier and the presence of Judge Holden in contrast to the rest of the gang. Much has already been discussed regarding how an adaptation should look from both a narrative and visual standpoint, so I'll keep it brief. If I were to infuse the spirit of multiple directors to craft my own version, I would take the grittiness of Sam Peckinpah, the atmospheric texture of Terrence Malick, and the keen eye for detail that Kelly Reichardt possesses. In this video, I want to focus on how the blueprint of a potential adaptation can be inspired from music. Consider this a stylistic framework based on one's auditory experience. The prime issue lies in translating McCarthy's unique prose style to the screen, as he prefers to forego grammatical convention, such as quotation marks and apostrophes, while favoring long sentences with sparse punctuation. While it would be apt to describe early novels in McCarthy's bibliography, like The Orchard Keeper and Child of God, as Southern Gothic, Blood Meridian marks a stark departure from the aforementioned, adopting a grander approach to its characters. Evil forces are depicted in a mythical manner, bridging historical fact with spirituality. Southern Gothic is an artistic movement that fuses the Gothic world with that of the American South. Rather than romanticize the failed attempts to prop up things like American exceptionalism, the literary movement seeks to pull back the curtain and reveal the festering evil that plagues the region. The works of Flannery O'Connor are a perfect starting point. Her two novels, Wise Blood and The Violent Bear It Away, are each masterful examples in depicting the overall cynicism of the time and the role of religion in the nation through a Catholic context. While not explicitly fitting in the genre, Larry McMurtry's 1961 debut novel, Horsemen Pass By, capitalizes on the destructive nature and lingering sentiment posited by the persuasive everyday evil of the cowboy. Deconstruction is the key for me when analyzing these texts, for there is immense power in the stereotype and our continued interaction with them. Martin Ritt's adaptation of the aforementioned HUD rips the barren landscape apart. Paul Newman's portrayal of the character is aptly dubbed the man with the barbed wire soul, tearing open those who dare to approach. Comparing HUD to already disparate westerns like High Noon and Rio Bravo, which each clearly delineate conquests where noble individuals attempt to triumph over evil, is a good way of charting how narrative and character tropes develop in different directions despite textually being constrained by the same genre conventions. In modern discourse, country music unfortunately continues to carry a bad rep. It is commonplace to hear people say, "I listen to everything except country." If one's country palette solely consists of nothing but bro country, I'd be less inclined to push back against this sentiment. However, the subgenre of Gothic Country exists. Representative of darkness's mingling with beauty, its production often features heavy use of instrumentation typically associated with bluegrass and alt country. A kindred spirit to freak folk, vocalists often employ unconventional singing styles, utilizing an abstract, lyrical emphasis. The themes highlighted within Gothic Country align with Blood Meridian and best represent the feelings that arise when reading it. To me, No Country for Old Men's status as a neo-western can be attributed to an amalgamation of motifs gleaned from that of Southern Gothic and the revisionist western. The Coen brothers' 2007 adaptation of McCarthy's novel is famous for its incredibly minimalistic use of music. Herein lies the conundrum. Should a Blood Meridian adaptation have non-diegetic music at all? I believe you can construct a persuasive argument for both sides, so treat our discussion as an interpretive exercise where you decide for yourself. 1. Childhood in Tennessee. Runs away. New Orleans. Fights. Is shot. To Galveston. Nacogdoches. The Reverend Green. Judge Holden. And a fray. Toadvine. Burning of the hotel. Escape. See the child. He is pale and thin. He wears a thin and ragged linen shirt. He stokes the scullery fire. Outside lie dark turned fields with rags of snow and darker woods beyond that harbor yet a few last wolves. His folk are known for hewers of wood and drawers of water, but in truth his father has been a schoolmaster. He lies in drink, he quotes from poets whose names are now lost. The boy crouches by the fire and watches him. Every chapter in Blood Meridian begins with a series of brief titles that foreshadow what is to come. The clash between hyper-detailed description and simplicity results in a form of esoterica, serving as an ode to the writing of William Faulkner. It's a bold creative choice and unintentionally contrasts the ever-changing array of covers that a publisher chooses to enshrine. The aphorism, "Don't judge a book by its cover," doesn't apply in the same way when attributed to album art. Upon rare expectations, album covers remain unchanged following their release. I find that the packaging of a record or CD can often influence the feeling behind the work, as well as generate new interpretations. In the film world, trailers are granted the ability to sway an audience toward a feeling, oftentimes misdirecting them entirely. It's paramount that the gratuitous violence within Blood Meridian remains rooted in its philosophical intrigue to avoid the exploitative pitfall of a pulpy traditional Western film. In this manner, the expectations placed upon a literary adaptation are rooted in a desire for realism, leading many to conflate accuracy in the source material with quality. I would argue that we should strive to capture the original work's pathos. I am less concerned with the way narrative events are portrayed in a Blood Meridian film, but rather how can the audience engage with the ideas and feelings set forth. The sounds of Gothic Country hold similar traits to the genre with the progressive prefix. Prog rock, metal, and folk all make use of tempo shifts or uncommon time signatures, embedding themselves in a form of technical virtuosity. Here are some modern album recommendations to get us started, each with striking art representative of the respective emotions that emerge within their sounds. Tarantella's 2005 album Esqueletos sets forth religious irony in the face of the divine. The stars form a faint cross in the sky as two people merge into each other, sharing the flesh of darkness. Alongside the sparseness of the human portrait, it is commonplace for descriptive renditions of animals to take precedence in Gothic Country album covers. Lux Eterno's 2013 album There Is Light in the Body, There Is Blood in the Sun features such iconography, bearing resemblance to wood carving. Apocryphal musings feature heavily in the melancholic lyrical structure here. The Huntress and Holder of Hands released their debut album Avalon in 2017. The cover dons an ornate cut-and-paste collage reminiscent of the past, serving as an ode to finding peace amidst pain. Chelsea Wolfe's 2019 album Birth of Violence showcases the singer-songwriter's startling prowess and command of genres that connote heavier emotions. Her covers center around an aesthetic you'd expect from an artist who ebbs and flows in sound, gliding from dark wave to doom gaze with ease. Adia Victoria's 2021 album, A Southern Gothic, is a blues-infused portrait of Southern life. Indicative of oral communication's permanence in the genre, our ears are turned inward. Alt-country stalwart Jason Isbell, as well as Matt Berninger of The National, both notably feature in this project. It feels the most connected to the modern rendition of the genre, ushering in another phase of unshackled musicianship. Charting the genre's evolution and path throughout these past few decades allows us to set the framework for the potential uses of the sound. The kid was born in 1883 under the banner of a cosmic event, a meteor shower. At 14 years old, he ends up in Nacogdoches, Texas, where he encounters Judge Holden for the first time. The novelization of Judge Holden stems from the memoir of Samuel Chamberlain, titled My Confession, The Recollections of a Rogue. This paragraph describes his appearance. The second in command, now left in charge of the camp, was a man of gigantic size who rejoiced in the name of Holden, called Judge Holden of Texas. Who or what he was, no one knew, but a cooler, more blooded villain never went unhung. He stood 6'6" in his moccasins, had a large, fleshy frame, a dull, tallow-colored face, destitute of hair and all expression, always cool and collected. But when a quarrel took place and blood shed, his hog-like eyes would gleam with a sullen ferocity worthy of the countenance of a fiend. Terrible stories were circulated in camp of horrid crimes committed by him when bearing another name in the Cherokee Nation in Texas. And before we left Fronteras, a little girl of 10 years was found in the chaparral foully violated and murdered. The mark of a huge hand on her little throat pointed out him as the ravisher, as no other man had such a hand. But though all suspected, no one charged him with the crime. He was by far the best educated man in northern Mexico. The monolithic appearance of the judge is adorned in uncertainty. Throughout the novel, his legend is elevated to a mythological level, carving a philosophical basis rooted in a ruthless disregard for traditional ethics and morality. The judge's confidence likens him to that of a preacher, one with total omnipotence, beholden to his own word only. Frontman David Eugene Edwards' vocal delivery with his group 16 Horsepower is paramount to the development of Gothic Country. It simply would not exist in today's form if it were not for the band's Christian misanthropic musings. The cover of Sackcloth and Ashes is of a photo you'd expect to come across in a run-down antique store without any context. Black Soul Choir. No man ever seen the face of his foe, no. He ain't made of flesh and bone. He's the one who sits up close beside you, girl, and when he's there, you are alone. Every man is evil, yes, and every man's a liar. Unashamed with the wicked tongue, sing in the Black Soul Choir. Every man is evil, yes, and every man's a liar. Unashamed with the wicked tongue, the Black Soul Choir. Oh, he rises in my way, oh, he rises in my way. Low Estate and Secret South, released respectively in 1997 and 2000, expand on the fundamentalist perspective offered in their literalist interpretation of the Bible's Old Testament. Blood Meridian frequently touches upon Gnosticism, a blanket term used to categorize various early Christian denominations and unconventional systems of belief. Gnosis translates to personal spiritual knowledge and detaches itself from traditional religious teachings. We see this present itself throughout the narrative, the Mennonites' prophetic warnings of God, the infighting within the Glanton gang, and the presence of evil as a continuous overarching malevolent force that the men succumb to. Perhaps the pinnacle of atmospheric Gothic Country, Wovenhand emerged in 2001 following a temporary hiatus in 16 Horsepower. Blush Music, released in 2003, functions as a subdued reckoning, ushering in a quiet resistance amidst the violence of a landscape once brimming with life. A recurring motif in the novel is the false ideal of companionship and how the concept is inevitably stripped of all goodness. Genocide is justified through dehumanization until the circle renders itself complete by the dismantling of the gang one piece at a time. Michael Girard, the longtime frontman of the experimental band Swans, departs from the group's menacing loudness with his work Under the Angels of Light. Those familiar with Girard's work will no doubt know of his propensity for the disturbing. Even in the gentle portions of his discography, a formless void always exists. Praise your name. Where are you wounded girls with bruised faces and blackened eyes? Break open your glass doors, welcome the whirling debris. Carve your name there in the marble and concrete. Kill idiot violence, punish greed, punish me. Run naked through the streets, stabbing bloody eyes and scream. I pray for you murderous, I pray for you well honed and clean. I pray for you anyway, your violent nature needs you to be. The opening track of the 2001 album How I Loved You takes an approach akin to that of Girard's famed post-rock dominion in projects like Soundtracks for the Blind, building toward an unexpected crescendo that ends in blissful solitude. There's a loneliness that permeates the group's album covers, a void of darkness surrounded by foliage, a woman who we know nothing about, and as we covered before, animal esoterica. The kid's capacity to commit acts of atrocities coupled with his inherent sinful nature, yet unlike the rest of the Glanton gang, there's an inkling of humanity that remains. When Tobin advises him to kill the judge for good for the rest of the group, he refuses. It remains textually unclear whether this choice was driven by fear or a sense of warped loyalty, for his moral compass remains intact in further isolated incidents. Arising from the embers of destruction in the wake of manifest destiny, the senseless nature of violence is explored through a deterministic lens. This pillaging takes root in all areas of life. Townsfolk are starving, and populations are wiped off the face of the earth, all in the name of the Promised Land. The Anglo-Saxon concept of weird is best represented in audible form through the wistful voice of Big Blood and the Bleeding Hearts' frontwoman, Colleen Kinsella. Released in 2008, their self-titled album's ethos would be best suited to the strangeness that a potential adaptation should carry. O country, skin and bones. O country, you bloody old miser. Shake off the ancient dust of your heartless fathers, and rain pounds upon Tyne, upon Tweed, upon the daylight. Darlings sweating to keep you upright. How I love to leave you crooning your songs, mooning away the time to stretch farther, while he chased the lovely tales of a youth turned soft and holy, makes loose the leashes and lashes of this cracked armor. The songwriting of Big Blood is wondrous and sprawling, retaining a readability in the same manner as McCarthy's work. This album features one of my favorite covers ever. A woman is swallowing a sword while shades of yellow swathe the uneven charcoal scenery. I see this illustration as a kindred spirit to an optimistic perspective of Blood Meridian's ending, where the acknowledgement of violence itself may bear the creation of a new self, where history does not repeat. Amigo the Devil's 2024 album, Yours Until the War Is Over, features a painted cover reminiscent of, oddly enough, a distorted portrait of Judge Holden featuring pale skin and a distorted mouth. Straying into the uncanny valley is something Danny Kiranos embraces through his candid vocal delivery, approaching sincerity in an almost uncomfortable manner. Some of the lyrics on this record feature an inverse of Holden's philosophy on paper, channeling a personal, defeatist-like sadness above all else, yet both are unrelenting in the knowledge they choose to impart. It's all gone. You see, the Commodore and the cannibal are starving and they both need to eat. But a civilized man will judge what he can, till the ship drowns and men become meat. On the island where you'll find him, deserted and bare to the bone, he finally understands why the cannibal's hands have the same blood as his own. When everything you knew has a new point of view, and suddenly the savage is you. Munley J. Munley is easily among my favorite songwriters of all time. Known as the godfather of the Denver sound, Munley's projects across the country genre are second to none and feature a lyrical and storytelling prowess abundant in subtext and vivid imagery. He has an incredibly extensive body of work among different groups, most notably sharing a story journey with Slim Cessna in Slim Cessna's Auto Club. The albums Always Say Please and Thank You, The Bloody Tenant Truth Piece, and Cypher feature tour-de-force instrumental and vocal performances from the group alike. Munley and Slim Cessna's more recent album duology under the moniker DBUK, songs 1 through 8 and songs 9 through 16 each feature Swans-esque covers drenched in darkness. Always Say Please and Thank You's album cover reads like a rendition of the tricky dominion prevalent in the ensemble's relationship with one another. Munley J. Munley only released one self-titled album in 2004 under the project Munley and the Lee Lewis Harlots. It features what is perhaps my favorite opening 2-track run in all of music. Amen Corner and Big Black Bull Comes Like a Caesar. The nature of violence and our divine right to perpetuate it are each essential to Munley's sound, paralleling that of the Judge's views toward war, a concept that metastasizes in literal form. If I were pressed to choose, Big Black Bull Comes Like a Caesar is the ultimate Blood Meridian coded track. A parable of sexual violence and corrupted adolescence, it remains elusive beyond symbolism. This is what it sounds like when my brother calls me. My parents, they up and passed when I was none than 3. I forced myself onto my brother, I made him watch me swell. And when we'd sit round the kitchen table, he would whip out his brand new blade. He'd scratch out words in the wood of the table. I never could tell what they say, but I could tell they were dirty. The final paragraph of Blood Meridian is among the most quoted passages of McCarthy's body of work. And they are dancing, the floorboards slamming under the jackboots and the fiddlers grinning hideously over their canted pieces. Towering over them all is the judge, and he is naked dancing, his small feet lively and quick now in double time and bowing to the ladies, huge and pale and hairless, like an enormous infant. He never sleeps, he says. He says he'll never die. He bows to the fiddlers and sashays backwards and throws back his head and laughs deep in his throat, and he is a great favorite, the judge. He wafts his hat, and the lunar dome of his skull passes palely under the lamps, and he swings about and takes possession of one of the fiddles, and he pirouettes and makes a pass, 2 passes, dancing and fiddling at once. His feet are light and nimble. He never sleeps, he says that he will never die. He dances in light and shadow, and he is a great favorite. He never sleeps, the judge. He is dancing, dancing. He says that he will never die. The fiddle and amen corner is central to its identity. Braying animals serve as a harsh form of ambient noise. It's what I imagine is happening in the former passage, after the kid, who is now the man, seems to be no more. The sheer craftsmanship on display in the genre of Gothic Country is a testament to the attainable results one can achieve through a recognition of the past. A woven tapestry of political and philosophical musing, those who traverse the beaten path here are welcome. If we ever do get a Blood Meridian film adaptation, I hope the spirit of Gothic Country takes root. Since McCarthy's novel itself would not exist without the historical, religious, and literary inspirations it draws from, I believe brilliance often does arise and is aided by the most unlikely of sources. If you somehow finished this video and haven't read Blood Meridian, I highly encourage you to do so. If you'd like access to a curated Gothic Country playlist featuring songs and albums discussed in this video, a playlist is available inside a free post on my Patreon. If you'd like to support my work, please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel. My Patreon is in the description for those who wish to fund future videos with their generosity. Thank you to my patrons, Joan, Jordan, and Joey. Thank you for watching. I truly appreciate it.